It's Wellness Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday, and I'm still fighting off this cold. I'm about 35% better than I was yesterday. But as you can hear, talking's a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, we're going to talk about projection again because times are getting pretty tough. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of assumption of emotion and intent going on in text-based conversations that I'm aware of. And it's creating problems where otherwise none would exist because people are assuming anger or some sort of hostility where there is none. And as you can imagine, if somebody keeps assuming you're angry when you're not, then you actually are going to get irritated. And then the person just, see, you were angry all the time. And it's always a mistake to make another person's emotions the issue. It's gotten to the point where people think nothing of stating openly that, they apologized to basically placate somebody else instead of apologizing because they actually were sorry. They did something. And it is always, always, always a mistake to say anything, especially with emotional content, to get a preferred outcome, because eventually you will get caught. And that's not going to go well for you, especially if you're dealing with someone with a pre-existing health condition. You string them along, they're eventually going to find out, and then they're going to be significantly more upset than if they were told at the time. And it's understandable, that you want to delay the explosion, so to speak, but it's diminishing returns the longer you do it, because instead of the person not being happy with what you did, then they're not happy with what you did and that you lied to them. And that's not smart. That's not good happy math in the long term. But it is so common. And then there's this resentment when someone does. If you're apologizing for any reason or you're saying anything for a reason other than that you believe it, that is not the same as being selective in how much you share, as long as what you do share is true. If you're apologizing when you're not sorry, just to calm the other person down or shut them up, eventually resentment's going to build up in you, and then nothing ever gets solved because it's just this unending cycle of resentment where you apologize to shut the person up, and then you get resentful that you had to apologize, and then the resentment builds, and you snap, and then you apologize to shut the other person up, and conversations become increasingly less authentic, and you get increasingly bitter. And that's not good, because eventually someone gets so used to that cycle and they're so not feeling their feelings that they end up saying things that to any objective outside observer don't make any fucking sense. And yet the person saying it thinks it makes complete sense because they want it to be true, but it doesn't. And their tone, their body language, their gesture, their word choices don't match their stated feelings. And that doesn't mean somebody's coming at it with nefarious intent. Somebody can be extremely emotionally repressed. And I find the people who have their emotions bottled up get very upset over very little. Someone lost their shit at me last week because I wouldn't tell them what they should be sorry for because they thought they did something wrong. And they got very upset that I said, I can't spoon feed you. To this day, I left the conversation knowing they were fucking pissed at me lied off their ass about being pissed at me, but they kept going back to that "I can't spoon feed you" comment I made. And to me, that is just a frank statement. That is not intended to be insulting or anything like that. But they kept saying, "Well, it seems like you're angry. It seems like you're angry." And I wasn't angry. Now, clearly they were offended by the comment, but, they wouldn't admit it. So we couldn't talk about it. And no matter how many times I explained to them that I was referring to the fact that I can't tell them what they think they did wrong. And because, we'd previously identified that they have people-pleasing tendencies, anything I tell them that as a suggestion of, maybe what they did do wrong, they're just going to repeat to end the argument. And so it's not going to be sincere. It's going to completely defeat the purpose. These are the things where you really can't do anything about it. It's an unsolvable problem because both parties in a conversation are not being authentic, and it's not intentional. But anybody who expects you to tell them what they should apologize for because they feel like it was wrong and they are sorry. But it's amazing how often conversations of this form happen, right? I mean, I know I grew up rough, and I know that I have been forced to deal with a lot more blunt talk than most people. But the thing is, I find the people that tend to go off this way are the ones that are pretty harsh on other people and are very big on, I can handle criticism. I can take it. I'm no snowflake. But then the minute you suggest they did anything wrong, they pick your words apart. And the thing is, I don't believe this is nefarious intent. I think these are people that are so strung out, so spun out, that they can't stop and sit with their feelings and separate it from the other person's feelings and actually take stock of where the other person ends and they begin and behave accordingly. And often it's family that teaches this. There's so much fakery in families. I mean, we're going into American Thanksgiving, and so a lot of people are just going to have to grin and bear fake nice over the Thanksgiving table. And unfortunately, when fake nice goes on in families, there's, one or two family members that get away with murder and everybody else has to suck it up. And it's the paradigm of, how he is, or how she is. That's just the way they are. That's just the personality. Well, what about how everyone else is? What about everybody else's personality? Exactly. People should be able to ask for someone to stop doing behaviors that they find unpleasant. Not thoughts. You can't tell anybody not to think something. And that's the problem when someone goes, "Don't be mad," or "Don't be mad at me. You have to promise not to be mad." People are going to get angry at you. People dislike bombed the Has-Been Hotel review yesterday and didn't leave a comment as to why. So, when people do that, I just kind of thought, well, I said something true that they didn't like. Okay, I've done my job. But it always seems odd to me that somebody goes, "Dislike, I punished them with engagement." YouTube likes that. It likes when something infuriates you so much that you hit a dislike button. Now, I didn't offer my opinions to rile people up. I don't do that. But sometimes, an honest opinion hits somebody funny, and you get a lot of projections of, "This game hates me," or "I felt attacked by this piece of media," not recognizing that the game, the movie, the TV show doesn't know you exist. It's reflecting something about life onto you that you don't like. And while you felt really unsettled by exposure to this piece of media, we have to keep in mind that this particular media was not about you. You know, just because something doesn't center a particular group doesn't mean it hates the particular group. And that's a distinction that's been lost in modern context. And you know, part of it's toxic fandoms, but toxic fandoms come out of a collection of people who decide to lean into the toxicity and just use a particular piece of media to act out and to be shitty to each other instead of listening to other perspectives without having to agree. And that's everywhere now. You know, the idea that there are different proposed solutions to the same problem in politics gets people labeled a fascist. And, you know, it's allowed fascist tendencies to thrive in government, because when a mere disagreement is fascism, what's actual fascism? You know, for instance, there's a difference between thinking poverty is a problem, but having a different idea of how to solve it than, you know, just refusing to see poverty as a problem, let them eat cake. If somebody agrees that poverty is a problem, you can have a compelling back and forth about the pros and cons of various solutions, you know, market solutions versus government intervention, you know, the pros and cons of creating a lot of people in a welfare system, how long, how meaningful social welfare impacts people's lives. You know, there is a mindset to being on welfare. I found this because, you know, when I was building the concept for It's Not Therapy and Leanna Cares, I went to a lot of workshops. You know, I sampled a lot of different things. And I find that when a workshop is free, it's just a pity party. If you even charge somebody $5 to attend a workshop, you get a much higher quality of people being there, because they're investing in themselves. And I mean, $5 is not even going to cover your rental space right now. And there's so many people who think, well, if you're serious, you should do it for free. And no, that's not true. Because when you work with free, you're dealing with people who just attend for something to do, not because they're sick of feeling shitty and really want change. And, you know, then there's the stuff that charges you thousands of dollars up front and makes you, you know, sign up for a set number of sessions. And I don't agree with that. I find that if somebody signs up for one session with me, they are very likely to sign up for multiples and continue long term. But I'm confident enough in the service I offer that I don't need thousands of dollars up front. And, you know, this is a philosophical thing. The people that do charge thousands of dollars up front say, well, I want to guarantee that somebody's gonna stick with it. Okay, that's a valid reason. You know, I don't agree. For me, I don't want to feel forced to continue something that's not working for me. I would rather pay, you know, week to week. And if it's working, I keep going. If I'm not, I drop off. And, you know, no hard feelings either way. People's money is precious. But everybody has to do what's going to make them feel like they're valued and make them feel like a service is worth their time. And there's no right or wrong answers. Different things work for different people. And that's the thing. People who are so self-loathing, so insecure, so prone to identity threat because their own sense of identity is so shaky, can't do that. Well, different strokes from different folks. I see the reason in this other approach where you charge somebody $2,000 to $5,000 up front. It's not how I'm comfortable doing it, but I see where the person's coming from. But because I'm content enough with how I do things, even though people are constantly trying to tear me down, that I'm like, that's okay. I'm not doing something wrong just because they're doing something differently. They're targeting a different clientele, for one. Whereas, I'm targeting people who either can't afford therapists or want to supplement to therapy, or who've had bad experiences with therapy, and hopefully if they really need it, they'll go back. It's amazing how many the client relationships that really break down, the thing that super offends them is when I suggest that they actually need a license. They need somebody with a license. And it's usually a transference issue that I get the sense that they're taking out their issues with an older female family member on me. And I am not set up to do that. That if they want to do transference therapy, that's a very specific psychodynamic approach that requires a license because it's very dicey. And things get hostile fast when I set a boundary and go, okay, if you can't do this very simple thing, like apologizing for something you're sorry for, not to control my perceived rage, because I'm not angry, but you keep saying I am. I'm not hurt, but you keep saying I am. I don't want you to apologize to mollify me. I want you to apologize because you're sorry for something. That's the only reason I believe people should apologize. That is when things really break down. And it's difficult because that's absolutely not a nice to have in what I do. If I think someone needs, a licensed therapist, especially for medication, and they're not receiving it, I can't proceed. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for the client. Unfortunately, that's when things tend to get really super nasty. And there's nothing for it. It's really unfortunate. But I really wish that people weren't so afraid of, one, what a diagnosis means. Two, so afraid of their own feelings. The ability to admit that you're frightened or sad or angry and not transfer it onto someone else. It's very freeing. And yeah, do people try to punish you for being angry? Absolutely. And again, I'm fortunate enough that I can just not choose to work with people that, I don't think it's a good fit. There's always a risk that they'll go and say something nasty and untrue online, but that's true for anybody. And it says a lot about them that they choose to conduct themselves that way. It's a difficult thing to recognize that some people are going to believe things that aren't true and don't even make any sense just because it's fun. But people have choices. And it's a really good place to get to when you can accept other frames, when you can accept other people's perspectives, even if you don't agree with them. Other people start making a lot more sense when you understand where they're coming from. And, if a person is so easily wounded that they can't handle simple statements of fact, like, I can't tell you what's in your head, I can't do this work for you. It's tragic. But the reality of, the hard reality of mental health is by the time most people get proper help, they're so far down that they're drowning. And they really want somebody to magically come along and save them. I know I did. And I wanted somebody to just pull me out of all of my problems, give me some magic pill, give me some magic switch. And it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Things only start getting better when you start making changes, when you start helping yourself. And yeah, some people around you are not going to like it because the vast majority of mental health issues are environmental. And so some people are going to fall away. Some people are not going to make the journey with you, Sometimes two people, nobody's a bad person. You're just bad for each other. Their condition contrasts too much with my own. We can't find a way to accommodate everybody. Okay, we're going to go our separate ways. No harm done. I would much prefer to have that conversation than the nasty shit that tends to happen. But let me tell you, being around a bunch of neurotypical people at the women's show this weekend, not the booth people, like the attendees, there's a lot of fake nice going on out there. And there's a lot of people just putting on a front to keep going. And the sooner people stop doing that, the sooner you accept who you are, the sooner you face reality, and the sooner you stop deflecting and projecting blame onto things like media and other people who are not the cause of your pain, and you really address the real cause of your pain and take steps to better, the sooner you'll actually be happy. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching and be well.